Modesto, California at the Modesto Airport. We got an airplane coming in here behind me, and I'm with Don Monaco, a literal legend in the annals of Modesto small business. Donnie, how you doing today?
Doing just fine.
So Don has lived an interesting life, and we're here in Don's hangar, basically the ultimate man cave. I gotta tell you what, we're gonna take a walk around this hangar for a minute. Don's gonna show us some of his toys that he's accumulated over the years a little bit, give us a little background on those things. Don, when is your 90th birthday?
2 months.
In 2 months, Don's gonna turn 90 years old. We could all wish to be in this kind of condition, in this kind of shape at 90 years old. Let's start with this vehicle right here. Don, what do we got here, and how did you acquire this one?
Oh, that Bob Piccini had a little car collection, and whenever he passed, I felt like I should own something what Bob had.
Yeah,
and
now, for you viewers that aren't aware of who Mr. Piccinini was, he made Save Mart supermarkets. It was like 180 stores all the way around the country. Don was good friends with Mr. Piccinini, and Mr. Piccinini had a lot of really cool cars. Now, you look at this car. What the year is this car?
That's 1940 Ford, and that one Dearborn, which is a big deal for the car people. And it's never been drove. All you do is polish it.
You started to making a few little adaptations to the engine, I think I remember.
Yeah.
Carburetors put on there, Don, or something? Don's the king of sleepers.
The real car collectors look at this and thumb their nose at it. But this is old Empire style mechanic. I was raised on a peach ranch, and we always did things to our cars.
So what do we got as a flathead?
Yes.
V8. You got two barrel carburetors?
Yes.
And what kind of horsepower is this thing putting out?
Probably 100.
100 horsepower. But you know, it's just a show car. So now when we're walking around, Donnie, we got a little toy up here. Let's talk about that barn find. That's like an Indian, and that's a real barn find, fresh, never really changed.
It only has 10,000 miles on it. I found it in a garage sale, and it was one of those things that just jumped in your garage.
You just couldn't believe you found it.
I couldn't believe I bought it.
Moving around over here in the hangar, you got a lot of World War II memorabilia and photographs on the walls.
You know, my childhood, I was born in 34, Second World War started in 41, and it's a lot of that stuff stuck in my mind. You know, all you did is your mom and dad talked about the World War, and I started collecting stuff. Oh, I started collecting this stuff when I was a kid, really. All of these pictures are Modesto area people.
Well, I'm looking at something right here that kind of stands out that isn't from Modesto. You got a hand-signed photograph from Pappy Boyington.
Oh, yeah.
How did you get a hand-signed picture from Pappy Boyington? That's like a pretty famous guy.
That's Ron Posey's dad alongside of him, and his dad run across Boyington somewhere in the Pacific.
Somewhere in the South during the war, and he got a picture with him.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The little pickup, is that when you went in the Arctic?
Yep,
Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, we entered the contest. There was 50 of us, and we went from Seattle, Washington, across the Arctic Circle, back into the United States, 6,000 miles in 10 days. And that was the stupidest thing I'd done. We drove day and night. There was Adrian Crane and myself, and that was a time, speed, and distance contest. And we won.
How cold was it?
Oh, 50 below zero. You can't believe how cold 50 below zero is.
Now, another thing that you did in your life was the Lakesters.
Oh, well, you did.
Let's talk about Lakesters.
I wanted one of these for some reason. I run across it, and Chuck Billington and Jack McCoy are partners on it. We knew nothing about lake salt flat racing, and we entered it, and we set 6 or 7 world records with this. It has an antique Ford flathead motor in it, and we got it up to 207 miles an hour, which the engine only had 85 horsepower when it was new.
207 miles an hour on the lake. Now, did you race that, or who was the driver?
Myself and Billington, and you lay down in that. It doesn't have the rest of it here, but it's with this down, you're laying on your back, looking through your feet, going 200 miles an hour, and you're awful happy whenever the checkered flag comes out.
Yeah, you're happy that it's over.
Yes.
And look at the picture here on the left.
That was the last time I flew that airplane.
That was the last time Donnie flew it. We call that an endo. And he came and endoed it in and planted it into the runway and broke the prop. So we're going to go over there and look at that Ryan right now and take a look at that, because that's a very interesting airplane. And that was like something that you wanted to buy it for the reasons of history, or?
No, I had no idea why I wanted it. It just looked like something I should own.
Another money, no sense thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
So it looked like something that you should have, and therefore you went and bought it. Now, there's a very famous movie actor that has one like this, isn't it?
Well, there was, yes.
And he was in Star Wars. What was his name? Harrison Ford owns that aircraft, and if you'll remember, he wrecked it. He had an airplane like that, and he had a crash in that airplane, and that's exactly the airplane that he has. Let's go over and take a look at that one. What year was this aircraft made?
This 1936.
The 1936 aircraft, and you can see the styling of it, like the aerodynamic airfoils they put over the tires and so forth. It's just an open cockpit airplane, and flying in it has got to be just a thrill.
There was a guy named Tex Rankin. He was a pilot, and he won the World Aerobatic Contest in one of these airplanes in Paris, France, in the 30s. He did an outside loop. When you're flying, and you go down like that, and you come back up the other side. I never tried to do an outside loop in it. But whenever you stick the nose down, you start going really fast.
Now we're coming over to the little boy toy area where speed, horsepower,
is important,
and showing off burning rubber comes into play in Don's life. Let's take a look at the 32. When I first met Don, he was probably in his early, when I started flying with him, late 70s, early 80s, something like that. And he's going to go race this 32. So he is underneath the 32, changing out the differential gears in the rear end to a different composition so that he could go faster. One of the things that was really fun when Don would come in is he would like to get the thing and do burnouts here in front of the hangar for everybody to show that the gears were installed properly.
Yeah, there's a lot of engineering into this. This thing had 100 horsepower when it was brand new, and we got almost 500 horsepower out of it. It's supercharged. We put 25 pounds of air to it, and it stayed together. Terry and Joe did a really good job of designing that.
So there's not a lot of 32s around with a flathead 500 horsepower engine.
No.
Probably this is the only one.
Oh, I'm sure. This thing will spin its tires the whole length. I mean, it's really powerful.
For you car enthusiasts, I would use the word healthy. That sounded pretty healthy.
It does.
Now this is the Don Monaco Sleeper Caddy. Again, you take a look at this. Look at that old boy driving that car, but let's take a look under the hood on that thing. What did you do on this one?
This thing here spins its tires also.
Yeah, it'll spin the tires in a good way, won't it?
Yeah.
So we had an upgrade here. We got 3 carburetors on this one, huh?
Yeah.
3 deuces.
Yeah.
And what kind of horsepower are we pulling out of this baby?
I'm not sure, but it spins its tires pretty good.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that this particular Cadillac has an addition to it for Mr. Monaco's comfort. Didn't you put air conditioning in this aircraft?
Yeah.
We got an air-conditioned Caddy, which isn't like a standard equipment that came in that year.
1949.
Don, I want to kind of switch gears here a little bit, and I want to talk about when you were a young man. You were in the military. You were in the Navy, was that? And where did you go in the Navy?
I dropped out of high school. I joined the Navy when I was 17 and got on a heavy cruiser and was on it for 3 years. And my last year on the cruiser, we did a round-the-world cruise. So we went through the Suez, across the Orient, and then I got discharged in Newport, Rhode Island. And I got back to Modesto and then started looking for a job. And the first job I was able to get was at the can plant And then after the can plant, I got a job at Acme Glass Company, and I've become a glazier. And I'm young, I'm 21 years old. And I worked for them for maybe 5 years. It was slow times, building was bad. I got laid off, and I had a hard time to get another job. Married, got 2 kids, and I ended up, I had a 51 Chevy, and I would go to used car lots and trucking companies and ask if I could fix any windows. And they would hire me for $10. I'd put a window in for them. Then I'd go over to Acme. I had no money. And I'd go to Acme Glass Company and buy a piece of glass. Then I'd go back and install it. And I did that for 2 years, working out of my car. And I wanted a truck with a grinding machine where I could, not have to go back and forth. And I kept going to my dad, and Dad, all I need is $2,500. And he'd be reading the newspaper, and he'd wad it up, and he'd go, "What? What do you want?" I said, "If I just had $2,500, I could do this or that." And he says, "No." And finally, he takes me to the bank and co-signs for me for $2,500. Bought a truck, bought a grinding machine, and I worked for 5 years out of that truck. I was able to save enough money to rent a building, and I had 1 employee, 2, and it grew. And that company, which I sold, now has, I think they have 1,000 employees, and they're doing a real good job.
From there, the rest is history.
It just kept growing, and I just kept hiring good people that helped me with stuff. And I have to say, the employees make a company.
No doubt about it.
Yeah,
do you have any secrets you can share with people on how you put a team together and how you motivate your employees to stay enthusiastic?
One of the things, when I hired them, I would interview them, and then after I interviewed them, I walked out to their car with them. And if they had a clean car, nice, neat looking, them's the ones I hired. If the car looked like they had last week's lunch in the seat, they were not qualified. And that was, yeah.
So what can you tell people about money? What have you learned about money in your life?
You better save a little bit. And I do believe that a way to save money is to buy property. The property is always worth what you pay for it, and it will appreciate. Yeah.
Do you have anything that you want to do, or any accomplishment or any kind of like goals at this point in time?
I wanted to make sure to live for my 90th birthday, and then I'm starting to plan my 100th. And
plan your what?
My 100th birthday.
I think that's a good idea. Talk briefly about what you've done for the children and the Christmas shopping, because my wife and I have been involved in that for years. How did that idea come about?
I was single, and I was on the board of directors for the Salvation Army. And one day I says, if you got a couple of kids, I'll take shopping. And I did. Took a couple of boys, and we went to the mall and that. And some people heard about it, and they says, "Hey, Don, could you give me a couple for next year?" Well, that thing evolved, and we ended up taking 100 kids every year shopping. And what it is that you take the kids, you spend your money, and you pick them up at a particular place, then you shop, and then I fed everybody, and then they would go home.
Tell us about the motorized skateboard. How did that idea come about?
There was a little store down the corner when I had the place on 12th Street, and I went in, and there was this motor sitting on the thing, and it was $90 or something like that. And I looked at it and said, I would have had that. It was a cute little motor. And I brought it back, and I went, I'm going to put this on a skateboard. And I did. My friend Bobby Saran is a mechanical engineer. He helped me with design, but I rode that skateboard in every parade within a 50-mile radius of Modesto for years.
That's the first motorized skateboard in the world. Right there.
Yep.
And there's the motor that Don bought. And there's the box that he transported in.
That thing goes 25 miles an hour.
And I am honored to know a man of your stature.
Bob,
and I want to thank you so much for being a great friend. And I really appreciate it.
You make me feel pretty good.
And I can tell you one thing right now, folks. This man has lived a life exemplary. lust for just a love of life, just an amazing love of life, and he's an inspiration to a lot of people. So if you ever get a chance to come to Modesto, California, come down to the Modesto Airport. This hangar is open on occasion. You know, he's putting it together and he's happy to share it with people. So thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Bob Campana, and we're gonna move on, and our next visit is going to be traveling the outback of Australia, learning about song lines, and we're going to be visiting New Zealand. So follow along, and we see you soon.